Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing you how to install rolled-in insulation, what type to use, what tools you'll need, and also how to do a cathedral ceiling like this to have proper ventilation so that it doesn't rot out the sheeting on the roof. Now that's really important, so I'll show you guys what we've got planned today. This is number 6 in a series. If you're interested in seeing how this process has gone along, we're building a bathroom on the back side of our house, so you can go back and see videos like how to do board and batten siding, gutters, sealing up the outside, doing the wiring, installing all the outlets and boxes and everything like that, as well as doing the plumbing, the septic, the water lines. We've done all of that so far. Today will be insulating. So I'll jump right into starting on that. Now today the tools you'll need are very simple. You'll need a sharp utility knife, sharper the better, to cut through the paper without tearing, and insulation as well. And you'll need 2 boards, one to cut on, another one would be nice to hold down on the insulation and be able to cut through it easier. Also, you'll need a stapler. Now, what you'll want to do is stretch the insulation as straight as you can. You don't want it bunched up at all, or else this will cause some issues and could cause the sheetrock to bust out and break in places. So you'll want to stretch it out as straight as you can and not have bunches in it, and then staple about every 8 to 10 inches. And that really, I found, holds it well and won't allow it to move at all. Now we're insulating an inside wall right here, and on the other side of this wall is this guest bathroom shower, so maybe a little heat will come off of this, so insulating is good, but it's more so for the sound. If you leave this hollow and put sheetrock up on both sides, if you knock on the wall or drop something in the shower, it echoed throughout the whole house. So it'd be great to have this insulated. If you have the opportunity to insulate inside walls, go ahead and do it. It's definitely worth it. But outside walls, you definitely cannot go without insulation. So we're going to be insulating the outside walls right here. And one thing to keep in mind, you can see the electric lines going through here. If you just try to shove the insulation into place with the wires in the way, it will squish the insulation in that section. Now, it might not seem like too big a deal, but that actually ruins the effect of the insulation in that spot. Really, the most effectiveness of the insulation is when it expands all the way, fills the space, and holds as much air in that pocket as possible. That helps the insulation do its job. So the best way to do this is to cut a slit in the back of the insulation, right where the wire is going through. That way you can spread the insulation apart and wrap it around the wire instead of squishing it in front of the wire. So we'll do that for the wiring, but I'll also show you how to do that around the plumbing. That is more crucial. You really want to make sure you're insulating the plumbing right, or else it could freeze in your wall and cause a huge mess. Now, I do want to mention, do not throw away any extra pieces of insulation or scraps that you have cut off, because there's always places that you can fill with that insulation, whether it's a tiny strip underneath the window or above the door or in a crack on the ceiling. There's always places that you can use this insulation, so hold on to it until the end of the project. If you have extras, then feel free to throw it away, but there's always a place for it, it seems like, when you're doing insulation. Now we're getting to the side that has the plumbing on the exterior wall. This is really important. You got to insulate this right. Do not just squish the insulation in and staple it. That's going to cause a huge problem for you when the pipes freeze. Now I'm cutting all the way through the insulation. I'll show you a better angle in a few minutes, but I'm cutting all the way through the insulation, only leaving the paper. Then I can pull the insulation, peel it back away about a foot on either side, and I can wrap that around the pipe and tuck it behind. So basically what you want is the insulation to be on the other side, the outside of the pipe, and only the paper covering up on the inside. That will allow the heat from the house to get through and warm up those pipes, but keep the cold air from getting in. Now you can also use the scrap pieces of insulation if there's any cracks in there behind the pipes on the exterior wall. Tuck that in, make sure it's sealed completely so that you don't have an issue with it freezing. Now I'll show you right here what I'm doing. I'm cutting through the insulation, only leaving the paper. So then I'll peel this off away from the paper and use this to tuck it behind the pipe on the wall. This is such a big section, so it's easier to just cut this off, tuck this in behind, and then I can staple the paper over top later. Now, one more precautionary measure you could take is when you're putting up the sheetrock ready to close it in, you can just slice the paper where the pipes are and tuck that even behind the pipes. That will expose it even more towards the heat on the inside of the house and keep those pipes warm even through the winter. Now, to cut the insulation, I mentioned before, but you can press down on a 2x4 or scrap piece of wood to squish the insulation down and make it a lot easier to cut. Now, if you're worried about the floor getting cut or anything, use a piece of wood underneath this to protect that. My floor is just the raw wood right now. I'm not too worried about that. So cutting it long ways can be a little tricky as well. You can use the 2x4 to stretch this out along, but it's sometimes easier just to cut along the way just with the knife. So I'm pressing down as hard as I can, almost level with the floor, so that squishes the insulation and that allows it to cut through a lot easier. Now, another thing I want to mention as we're going along, we're cutting or marking out where the plumbing is in the wall. It'd be horrible if we got done with the sheetrock, put everything up, and realized we put a screw through the plumbing. It's a very small chance, but if it ever happened, it would be horrible. So we're marking this out, planning ahead for the sheetrock, and we'll keep this in mind and don't put any screws in that section when we hang the sheetrock on the wall. Now we're done with the walls, so I'm going to move up to the roof, and I'm adding on a 2-inch spacer onto each one of these trusses. We use 2x6 trusses, and we have 6-inch insulation for the roof. Now what you do not want is for the insulation to completely fill the space and touch the roof, because that will rot out the chipboard that's on the roof completely. So what you want to do is leave a little bit of a gap. That 2-inch spacer will help with that, and let the air flow up through the ridge vent up at the top. So I'm also adding in the styrofoam spacers for on the edge of the roof. If you try to cram the insulation up there, it will squish it together and touch the roof. So that's keeping the insulation away at the bottom, and this will give it plenty of ventilation. When the sun comes out and condensates all over the roof, it will dry out because it has plenty of ventilation to vent up through the ridge cap and escape out the top of the roof. Now for this other side, this actually leads right into the attic in our house. So I'm going to be using 8-inch insulation, just like the rest of the house, to insulate this. It doesn't have a paper to cover it up and hold it in place. So what I'm going to be doing is I just have some thin string. We're going to staple this going across about every 8 inches. And then we'll also crisscross a little bit just to make sure this holds in place until we're ready to sheetrock. Alright guys, that finishes up my project for today. Insulating is done. We can now move to the next step, which next week will be sheetrocking the addition, getting it all ready to go. So stay tuned for that video. I'll show you guys how we do that. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video, as always, hit that like button down below. Helps me out a ton. Also, you can let me know in the comment section what you guys thought. Now, something really interesting, I can check on my YouTube and see who all is subscribed when they watch my video, and it's only 1% of my viewers are actually subscribed. If you guys watch my videos all the time, consider hitting that subscribe button. It helps me out a ton. Also, it will allow YouTube to recommend my videos to you a lot better, and you won't miss out on my videos each week. So go ahead and do that, and I'll see you guys in the next one.